It was late, and the streets of Sector 9 were quiet. Only the sound of light rain tapping on metal roofs filled the air. Darren, a human mechanic, walked alone with his tool bag slung over one shoulder. His shift at the spaceport had ended an hour ago, but he stayed late to fix a broken hydraulic arm. That's what he always did. Stay late, work hard, and go home to his small apartment above the junkyard. He didn't like this part of town at night. Too many eyes in the dark, too many shadows, that whispered. But tonight felt different. The air was colder, like the city was holding its breath. As he passed an old alley between two crumbling buildings, he heard a soft voice. "Please." "Wait." He turned, hand moving toward the small tool blade on his belt. A figure stepped into the dim light of a broken street lamp. It was a girl, small and trembling, no older than 17 in human years. She wasn't human, though, not fully. Her skin had a faint shimmer, a silver hue that glowed softly under the rain. Her eyes were too bright. "Glowing blue like twin moons, please," she whispered again. "Come with me." Darren stared at her, heart pounding. She looked like she hadn't eaten in days. Barefoot, wearing a torn cloth jacket too thin for the cold. She didn't look dangerous, but danger didn't always wear armor. "Who are you?" he asked, voice low. "Why me?" "I can't say here," she replied, voice shaking. "But you're human. You can help, I know it." Something in her voice, something fragile, made Darren pause. He had seen many things in this broken part of the galaxy. Liars, thieves, desperate people. But her eyes didn't lie. They begged not for money, not for food, but for truth, against his better judgment. Darren nodded. "Lead the way," he said. She turned and walked quickly into the alley, her bare feet silent against the wet ground. Darren followed, glancing over his shoulder. The deeper they went, the darker it got. Old buildings leaned together like tired giants blocking the sky. Graffiti covered the walls in strange alien symbols, some crossed out, some fresh. Warnings, he guessed, or prayers. At the end of the alley was a rusted gate sealed with an old bio-lock. The girl pressed her hand against it and the scanner blinked green. Darren froze. That was a military-grade scanner, not something a street orphan should have access to. The gate hissed open, revealing a stairwell going deep underground. No lights, no sound, only cold air rising like breath from a tomb. "Where are we going?" Darren asked. "To where they can't lie anymore?" She answered and started down. Darren hesitated only for a second before following her into the dark. The stairs went down far, farther than he expected. Every step echoed, swallowed by the cold stone walls. He counted 20 turns, maybe more, before they reached another door. This one was heavy, metal, and marked with symbols Darren recognized. Faded human writing, military codes, scratched and worn. The girl turned to him. "My name is Nara," she said softly, "and what you see in here, it might hurt." Before he could ask what she meant, she pressed her hand to a second scanner. The door clicked and opened slowly with a deep, metallic groan. Inside was a room lit by flickering panels, covered in dust. Screens lined the walls. Old Earth tech mixed with alien design. A tattered flag of Earth lay on the floor, its edges burnt. Darren stepped inside, staring. He knew this tech. It was from the early colonization days. Stuff that disappeared years ago, classified, forgotten. "What is this place?" he whispered. Nara walked to a central console and wiped dust off a metal file case. She opened it, and Darren saw something that made his breath catch. A photo of a man who looked just like him, standing in a jungle, holding a child with glowing blue eyes. "That's my father," Darren whispered. He hadn't seen that face since he was 10. They said his father died in a mining collapse on Titan Station. Naira looked at him, her voice barely a whisper. "He didn't die, Darren. He helped make us." Darren's hands trembled as he stared at the old photo. The man in the picture looked exactly like him. Same strong jaw, same sharp eyes, same tired look. It was impossible. His father had died over 20 years ago, but Nara had just shown him proof he had been here. alive, holding a child. Darren looked around the hidden room. Dust covered everything, but beneath it were machines still humming softly. Faint lights blinked on alien screens, and old Earth-style monitors flickered with static. He stepped forward slowly, his boots crunching the dry dust. "Where are we?" he asked, voice low. Nara knelt near the central console, brushing off a cracked screen. "This place was once a hidden lab," she said. "Not just Earth tech. This was a merging site." "A what?" Darren frowned. "They made people here," she whispered. "Children like me." Darren looked around again, this time with sharper eyes. He noticed signs he'd missed before. Diagrams showing human and alien DNA, charts of test subjects, notes written in Earth's old military font. Some words were blacked out. Some had warning stamps. Failure, unstable, terminated. Naira walked toward a wall panel and pulled it open. Inside were dusty wires and an old biometric reader. She pressed her hand on it, and a hidden door clicked behind the console. A low hiss echoed in the silence as the wall slid open to reveal a tunnel, narrow and dark. Darren stepped closer. The air rushing out of it was colder than the rest. It smelled like metal, old oil, and something strange, like forgotten time. "Where does that go?" he asked. "To the lower sector," she replied. It was where the others were kept. Before they vanished, Darren hesitated, then followed as Nara entered the tunnel. The walls were narrow, the light dim. He had to duck in places, and the old steel groaned beneath their steps. They walked for several minutes in silence, only. The sound of their breathing and the hum of ancient machines filled the air. At last they reached another door. This one wasn't high-tech. It was sealed with a metal crank, rusted and old. Naira reached out and began turning it, her hands shaking slightly. "It hasn't been opened in a long time," she said, with a final groan. The door creaked open, revealing a large room beyond. Rows and rows of empty beds lined the floor, some still with thin sheets and folded uniforms. The walls were covered in murals, hand-drawn images of stars, cities, and human-alien children smiling together. But dust covered everything, and the air was still. "This was the dormitory," Naira said softly, "where the hybrid children lived." Darren walked among the beds, running his fingers along the metal frames. "Why did they leave it like this?" he asked. "Why didn't they destroy it?" Naira paused, then looked up at him with sad eyes. "They didn't need to destroy it because they thought we were already dead." Darren's heart twisted. "What happened here, Nara?" She took a shaky breath. "There were over 40 of us, half human, half alien, all created here by Earth scientists and alien bioengineers. They said we were the future, proof that the two races could be one. But then," she continued, voice trembling, "something changed. The war started between the alliances. Earth pulled out of the program and they called us errors. They ordered a purge." Darren felt sick. "Your people were killed?" "Most of them," she said, "but a few of us escaped. My mother hid me. This lab, it was forgotten, buried, locked behind codes only those with human DNA could open. That's why I needed you." Darren turned to her. "You brought me here because of my father?" Nara nodded slowly. "He left something behind, something no one else can access." She walked toward a sealed metal box in the wall, glowing faintly with a red pulse. "Only a direct bloodline match can open it," she said. Darren stepped forward, unsure. "What if I can't?" Nara looked up at him. "You can," she said softly. "I've waited years for someone like you to come back." With a deep breath, Darren placed his hand on the scanner. It buzzed, then flashed green, and the box slid open with a gentle hiss. Inside was a small black cube, warm to the touch, with a glowing core pulsing inside it. "What is this?" he whispered. Naira answered in a voice barely louder than the wind. "It's a memory core. Your father's final message." Darren held the black cube in his hands. It felt heavier than it looked, not just in weight, but in meaning. The glowing core inside pulsed slowly, like it was breathing. Nara watched him carefully, her expression calm, but her hands were clenched, tight. He turned the cube over, trying to find a switch or screen, but the device didn't open the way normal tech did. No buttons, no ports, just smooth metal with old Earth markings engraved along the edge. Symbols he didn't understand, but they looked military, like something from a buried project no one ever talked about. Nara stepped closer. "This memory core was designed by your father," she said. "He used alien tech to protect the data inside. Only someone from his bloodline can activate it." Darren gave her a look. "And what happens when it turns on?" Nara hesitated. "I don't know. I've never seen it opened." Darren sighed and focused. He held the cube with both hands and whispered his father's name. Jonas McKellen. The cube glowed brighter, then vibrated softly in his palms. A beam of blue light rose from the top, projecting a hologram into the dusty air. A man appeared, standing tall in an old engineer's uniform. Darren took a step back, heart pounding. It was him. It was his father. "McKellen log 47B. The hologram began, voice clear but tired. "If you're watching this, then I didn't make it. I left this message for you, Darren." "My son." Darren froze. He hadn't heard his father's voice in over 20 years. His knees almost gave out. But Nara gently placed a hand on his shoulder. He stayed standing, barely. The hologram continued. "There are things the government and things I helped build. We were ordered to make something new, children born of both races. At first it was about peace," Jonas said, eyes flickering with pain. "But that changed when fear took over." Darren's stomach turned. He watched as images flickered in the air. Photos of hybrid children in classrooms, running through gardens. They looked happy, alive. Like any normal kids, then came darker images. Soldiers marching into the facility. Flames rising, screaming heard even in the silent projection. "I tried to stop them," Jonas whispered. "I saved what I could. I took Naira and hid. The memory core then locked the vaults, hoping someone, you, would come back." Darren swallowed hard. Nara looked up at the image of Jonas, her voice soft. "I never knew he recorded this." The hologram ended with a final message. "Darren, if you find this, protect them, tell the truth, and don't let their lives be erased like mine was." The cube dimmed, and the light disappeared. Silence filled the room again. But Darren's heart was loud, too loud, filled with broken thoughts and new anger. He looked around the room, now fully aware of where he stood. This was a graveyard, a hidden lab created in the name of peace, turned into a prison, forgotten beneath the city. While the world moved on, "I can't believe they buried all of this," Darren whispered. Nara nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "They said we were gone, destroyed. But I'm still here, and so are the others, sleeping, waiting." Darren's eyes narrowed. "Others?" Naira walked to a corner of the room and tapped a panel hidden behind an old poster. The wall creaked and slid open, revealing a second door, sealed by pressure locks, behind it. Another room, much colder, bathed in soft blue light. Darren stepped inside and stopped breathing for a moment. Cryopods lined the chamber, each one glowing softly. Inside each pod was a child, half human, half alien. Just like Naira, they were, asleep, frozen in time, peaceful but pale. Some looked no older than 5, others close to teenagers. "There are 23 left," Nara said quietly. "Many didn't survive the power cuts over the years." Darren walked slowly between the pods, eyes wide. Each one had a nameplate, scratched but still readable. Some had Earth names, some alien, others a mix of both. "This is why you brought me here," he said, not asking, knowing Nara nodded. "I couldn't wake them alone," she whispered, "and I didn't know how to keep them alive for long. I needed someone who could fix things." Darren looked at her, then at the children. He didn't have a choice anymore. This wasn't about curiosity or the past. It was about what kind of person he was going to be now. He placed his hand on one of the pods, felt the hum of life beneath the glass, and made a silent promise. "I'll fix this," he said. "I'll protect them, all of them. Naira smiled, but there were tears in her eyes, and somewhere far above, deep in the city's walls, something beeped. Something had just detected movement. They were no longer alone. The soft beep echoed again. Then a red light flashed on a corner panel. Darren spun toward it, recognizing the warning signal. It was motion detection. Something or someone had entered the upper levels. Naira's eyes widened. No one should know we're down here, she whispered. Darren moved fast, closing the secret cryo room door and locking it. We don't have time, he said. This place was supposed to be forgotten. He grabbed a dusty tablet from a shelf and began rewiring its power cells. If he could reroute the alert system, he could stall whoever was coming. Naira stayed, near the hidden panel, her hand hovering over a control pad. Can they find the children? She asked, voice shaking. Not if we block the signal, Darren replied, fingers moving quickly. He was trained in systems repair, and old Earth tech was his specialty. But this wasn't just tech anymore. It was personal. As he worked, flashes of the hologram played in his mind. His father's face, his final message, the children in the flames. He remembered being a kid, hearing whispers about experiments, about traitors who went too far. He thought it was just war stories. Now he knew better. Suddenly, a low sound came from the stairwell. Boots, multiple pairs. Darren looked up sharply. They're coming fast, he said. Too fast for patrol. This is a strike team. Naira reached under the table and pulled out a small metal rod. She pressed a button, and it turned into a short energy blade, glowing faint blue. Darren blinked, surprised. Where did you get that? From someone who died protecting me, she said, eyes firm now. I won't let them take the others. The door at the top of the stairs rattled. Then a deep voice shouted, Open up! This is sector security. Unauthorized access to restricted area detected. Naira looked at Darren. That's a lie. Real security doesn't use that code. He nodded. They're not here to ask questions. They're here to erase everything. Darren grabbed a canister of cryogas from a storage bin and twisted the valve. If we make it cold enough in here, their gear will fog up. They won't see clearly. He tossed it toward the door and ducked behind a console with Naira. Seconds later, the door exploded inward. 4 armored figures rushed in. Black suits, no insignias, visors glowing red. They scanned the room fast, weapons drawn. Heat signatures, 2 targets. One of them said. Naira moved first. She darted behind a pillar, slashed at one of the soldiers, cutting deep into his suit. The man shouted, falling back, sparks flying from his chest plate. Darren grabbed a loose metal pipe and smashed it into the back of another attacker's helmet. The visor cracked, and the soldier collapsed, gasping for air as his suit malfunctioned. The third fired a pulse round that hit a console, blasting sparks everywhere. Naira jumped forward and slammed her blade into his shoulder, knocking him down. But the fourth didn't fight. He just stood still, staring at Darren through his cracked visor. You're Jonas's boy, the soldier said, voice low. Darren froze. How do you know that? He asked. I served with your father, the man said, before the purge. He tried to stop the order. He failed. Naira looked at Darren, confused. Darren stepped closer, his heart pounding. Why are you here? He asked the man. The soldier looked down. To finish what they started, he whispered. But I didn't expect to find you. Before Darren could ask more, the soldier tapped a device on his wrist, then disappeared in a flash of teleport light. The others were unconscious, but reinforcements would come. Darren knew that now. They're using old codes, he muttered. They're not just security. They're cleaners. Naira helped him block the broken door with debris. Then she ran to the cryo room and opened the panel again. They'll come back, she said. We need to move the children. Darren looked at the pods. 23 lives, each one a secret the galaxy wasn't ready for. I don't have the tools to wake them all now, he said, but I can stabilize the energy so they don't shut down. Naira nodded. And the memory core? We can't leave it. I'll carry it, Darren said. And the footage from today, we can use it. They worked fast, collecting what they could, patching wires, transferring data, outside. Another alarm began to howl. This one wasn't from their system, it was from the city above. Someone had just flagged their location, which meant time was up. The alarms kept howling, loud and sharp. Nara winced as the sound vibrated through the underground chamber. The cryopods flickered with pale blue light, some of them dimming as power drained. Darren gritted his teeth, pulling open a junction box and rerouting cables as fast as his hands could move. "They're losing power," he muttered. "The main core's collapsing." Nara stood beside one of the pods, her hand pressed against the glass. Inside was a small boy, no older than 6, curled up in a peaceful sleep. "If they lose too much heat, they'll die," she whispered, voice cracking. "We can't let them die." Darren yanked an old battery pack from a rusted cart and connected it to the pod grid. Light steadied, but barely. He didn't have enough juice to hold all the pods at once. "We'll have to choose," he said, not looking at her. "Choose who wakes up first and who stays frozen until we can come back." Nara shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "No, I can't choose," she said. "They're not files. They're not machines. They're children." "I know," Darren said softly, "but if we try to wake all of them now and the systems crash, they'll all die." He stood up and placed a hand on her shoulder. "We have to protect what we can, and return for the rest." Nara looked at the rows of pods, her eyes stopping. On 3 near the center, "These were the youngest, they've been in stasis the longest," she said. "They're the most at risk." Darren nodded. "Then we wake them now." Working quickly, Darren activated the thaw cycle on the first pod. Steam hissed as warm air entered the chamber. The cryo glass shimmered, and the pod slowly opened with a gentle click. Inside was a girl with greenish skin and silver hair. Her eyelids fluttered open. She coughed softly and tried to sit up, her body trembling. Nara rushed forward and wrapped a blanket around her, holding her close. "You're safe," she whispered. "You're safe now." The second pod followed, then the third. 2 boys emerged, both dazed and weak, but breathing. Darren helped steady them, checking their vitals with an old scanner. "They'll be okay for now, but we have to move," he said. "I don't know how long the backup power will last." Nayara took a breath and looked back at the still frozen children. "I'll come back for you," she whispered to them. "I swear it." Darren pulled the data core from the central console and packed it into his tool bag. He handed Nayara a portable shield generator. "If they catch us above ground, this might—" "Give us 10 seconds," she nodded, holding the 3 children close. They moved fast, heading for a side tunnel Darren had seen on the power map earlier. It led to the old water systems, rarely used, forgotten by city planners decades ago as they moved. The smallest child tugged at Nara's sleeve. "Are you my mother?" she asked, voice thin and soft. Nara stopped, kneeling to face her. "No," she said gently, "but I'll protect you like one." The girl nodded and held tighter to her hand. Behind them, the cries of the alarm grew distant, but Darren knew it wouldn't last. Whoever had sent the first strike team wouldn't stop now. They'd send more, stronger, better armed, more determined to erase the evidence. The tunnel was dark and narrow, filled with the smell of rust and whetstone. Water dripped from broken pipes, echoing with every step they took. Darren used a wrist light to guide them, staying low and silent. Every time they turned a corner, he expected to see red lights or the glint of a drone, but there was only darkness and the quiet sound of breathing. It felt like hours before they reached the old drainage hatch. Darren forced it open, the rust cracking, and cold air rushed in. Outside was a steep slope leading into the outer scrapyards beyond the city. "We made it," Nara whispered, helping the children climb out. Darren followed last, pulling the hatch shut behind him. In the distance, he saw shadows moving near the city's edge. Patrols, searching for them. "We need a ride," he muttered, pulling out a comm unit he'd built from salvaged parts. He pinged an old contact, a shuttle pilot who owed him a favor. If she answered, they had a chance. If not, they'd have to run. Nara wrapped the children in spare jackets as they hid behind a stack of rusted metal sheets. She looked up at Darren. "Do you think people will believe the truth?" she asked. He looked at the memory core in his bag. I don't know, he said, but they'll hear it. And just as he said it, the comm unit buzzed. A signal came through. One word. Inbound. The cold night air hit Darren's face like ice. He crouched low beside Nara and the three waking children, hiding behind twisted metal and broken engines. The scrapyard stretched wide across the outskirts of the city, filled with rusted parts, abandoned vehicles, and piles of forgotten tech. But none of it could hide them forever. The comm unit buzzed again. A voice crackled through. Darren, this is Celix. You better have a good reason for waking me at this hour. Darren smiled despite the pressure. I'm sending coordinates now, he whispered. Emergency pickup. 5 passengers, possibly followed. There was silence, then a long sigh. You always find trouble, Celix muttered. Be there in 10, don't die. Darren shut the unit and turned to Nara. Help is coming, he said. We just have to stay alive a little longer. Nara looked at the sleeping children beside her. The youngest girl had curled up against her arm, shivering. The other 2 sat quietly, watching Darren with wide, glowing eyes. They didn't speak much, but he could feel their fear. Just then, a sharp humming sound filled the air. Darren's head snapped up. He knew that sound. Hovercrafts, low and fast, lights cut across the yard. From above, scanning, searching. They found us, Nara whispered. Move slow. Don't run yet, Darren replied. We don't know how many. But then they heard boots, heavy, fast, organized. Dark figures moved between the scrap piles, their armor sleek, silent, and without insignia. The same as before. The soldiers in black. They didn't shout orders, didn't speak at all. They moved like ghosts, hunting without mercy. Darren pulled a scrap panel off an old shuttle and handed it to Nara. Use this as a shield if they fire, he said. Keep the kids behind you. She nodded and took a deep breath. Then Darren grabbed a flare stick from his bag and slammed it against the ground. It lit up in a bright blue flame, blinding for a moment. He threw it over a distant pile to distract the soldiers. The light gave just enough cover for him to move deeper into the yard. He found an old cargo lifter, half working, but enough to make noise. He hot-wired it quickly, and the machine roared to life, drawing the attention of 2 soldiers nearby. They turned their weapons, ready to fire, but before they could, Darren slammed a metal beam into the lifter's steering panel and jumped off. The lifter rolled forward, crashing into a support beam with a loud explosion of sparks, a distraction, one that worked. Nara moved the children quickly through the chaos, ducking behind crates and engine blocks. One of the soldiers spotted them and raised a pulse rifle. But before he could shoot, a loud blast came from above. Celix's shuttle, dropping fast, lights cutting through the night like fire. The ship landed hard, its side hatch already open. Darren ran first, helping one child in, then another. Nara followed with the youngest girl in her arms. Laser fire slammed into the scrap around them as the soldiers opened fire. One bolt grazed Darren's shoulder, but he didn't stop. Celix, a sharp-eyed pilot with silver braids and a worn jacket, waved them in. Go, 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 she shouted. We're burning fuel. Darren jumped aboard last, slamming the hatch shut as the engines roared. The shuttle lifted into the air, jolting sideways as a shot hit the hull. Celix cursed and pulled them higher. Who are these people? She yelled, dodging another blast. Darren sat down hard, breathing fast. They're not people, he said. They're erasers. Celix looked at him through the mirror. You owe me a long story, McKellen. Nara checked the children. None were hurt, but all were scared. She sat beside them, brushing the youngest girl's hair gently. You're safe now, she whispered again, like a promise. But Darren wasn't so sure. The soldiers in black had tracked them even in a forgotten sector. That meant someone high up was watching. This wasn't just a local cover-up, it went deep, maybe even off-world. He opened his tool bag and pulled out the memory core. The cube still pulsed gently, the truth locked inside. Footage, files, experiments, testimonies, everything Earth wanted hidden. Nara looked at him. We have to show it, she said. If people see what was done, Maybe they'll help us. Darren nodded slowly. We'll send it to every channel, every system we can reach. Celix leaned back from the pilot seat. And where do you want to go now? She asked. You're all fugitives in case you didn't notice. Darren looked out the window as the city shrank below them. To the outer rings, he said. Far enough to hide, strong enough to broadcast. Celix grinned. Then buckle, and, she said, this is going to be loud. And with that, the shuttle shot into the night sky, leaving behind the black-armored ghosts, and heading straight toward a storm of truth. The stars outside the shuttle window drifted slowly as the ship floated in orbit above the dark side of a barren moon. Below, the shattered remains of an abandoned mining station gave them cover. No patrols, no scanners, no signals, just silence. Inside, the ship. Darren sat cross-legged on the floor, the memory core glowing in front of him. Naira sat across from him, one of the rescued children sleeping on her lap. Celix leaned against the cockpit door, chewing a protein bar like she'd seen it all before. Are you sure you want to do this? She asked. Once it's out, there's no going back. Darren didn't look up. I saw what they did to these kids, he said. I saw what they did to my father. They erased him, and they'll erase the rest of us if we stay quiet. He connected the memory core to a transmitter module built from 3 salvaged drones. The screen lit up, showing a list of frequencies, news networks, independent feeds, rebel channels, pirate signals. 1,000 voices waiting to hear the truth. Naira leaned forward. They'll try to stop the broadcast, she said. Maybe even send kill signals to fry the data. Not this time, Darren replied, adjusting the encryption. We're not just sending it once, we're flooding the net. He smiled without warmth. Every station in the quadrant will get it, even the ones that pretend not to see. Celix stepped forward, arms crossed. What are you going to say? She asked. You've got 10 seconds before people scroll away. Darren looked at the children resting near the back of the shuttle. He saw faces too young to know what fear really meant, but they'd lived it anyway. He stood, straightened his shirt, and turned on the camera. The small drone hovered silently, recording his every word. His voice came out calm but full of fire. My name is Darren McKellen. I was a mechanic on the lower colonies. I had a normal life, until I followed a girl into a forgotten tunnel. What I found there broke me. My father wasn't a coward or a traitor. He was a man who tried to protect children. Children made in secret by Earth's own hands. He paused. Nara nodded at him to keep going. The children watched silently now, sensing something important was happening. They created hybrids, Darren continued, to build peace between species, but when politics turned, they called them mistakes and they sent soldiers to erase them. My father died trying to stop that, and the ones who survived were buried beneath your cities, left to die in the dark. He held up the memory core. This holds proof, footage, documents, voices from the past, the names of those who ordered the purge, the labs, the lies, the crimes, all of it. He looked straight into the camera. If I disappear after this, remember my face. Remember that this message was real. Don't let them rewrite it again. He ended the recording and uploaded it. The data pulsed through the transmitter, breaking into pieces, bouncing off satellites. Carried across light years, it spread like a storm, like fire in dry grass. Within seconds, it reached places where truth had never been allowed. Rebel colonies gasped, independent journalists wept, and even some loyal to Earth. Hesitated for the first time in years, Celix whistled softly, watching the data go. Well, she said, that's one way to start a war. Nara didn't smile. She looked down at the children, gently holding one of their tiny hands. They didn't want a war, she whispered. They just wanted to live. Darren sat beside her, the glow of the core finally fading. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt tired, hollow, and awake all at once. A soft ping echoed through the ship's console. Celix checked the feed. Darren, she said slowly, you better see this. He walked over and his breath caught. Hundreds of messages, from everywhere, Colonies offering shelter, rebels pledging protection, pilots volunteering to smuggle supplies, and from deep, within Earth's own military network, a single message with no name attached. I remember Jonas McKellen, he was right, help is coming. Darren stepped back, stunned. For the first time in days, he felt a flicker of something unfamiliar. Hope, Nara, stood beside him. You followed me into the dark, she said quietly. And now, look what we lit up. He looked down at her and nodded slowly. I followed a girl in an alley, he whispered, and found the truth of a galaxy. Outside, stars burned brighter. Some were watching, some were waiting, and some were rising. And on a small ship orbiting a forgotten moon, a mechanic, a hybrid girl, and 3 lost children changed the story forever.